We continue finally with Lluís Alexandre Casanovas Blanco. He's an architect and curator. He holds a PhD in architectural history and criticism at Princeton University. He has served as a curator for institutions such as the Museum of National Center, Museu Nacional Centro de Arte Reina Sofia, in charge of architecture's permanent collection, La Casa Encendida, Fundación Cerezales Antonino Esinia, Centro de Criación Contemporánea de Andalucía, or the Oslo Architecture Triennale. He has a Critical Studies Elena Rubinstein Fellow from 2017 to 2018, and a Whitney Independent Study Program and a IKKM Weimar Princeton Summer School for Media Studies Fellow in 2016.
First of all, I would like to thank Victor for the invitation. It's a wonderful symposium. I'm really happy to be part of it. Thinkers like Anaxagoras and naturalists such as Mary Anning and Charles Darwin, or psychologists like Freud, have long explored the connections, continuities, and shared traits between humans and other animals. However, throughout history, the dominant belief has been that humans occupy a superior biological, ethical, and political order compared to other living beings. This perception, deeply rooted in Cartesian philosophy, distinguishes res cogitans, the thinking substance, human, from res extensa, the extended substance, animal. Given this historical divide, the task of transforming zoe, bare life, into bios, a meaningful life, finding voices and reaching agreements that form a more than human parliament, has become a crucial effort today. This enterprise aims to integrate the animal question into the political sphere, challenge the violence of their exclusion, and bring democracy, representation, and animality to the forefront of contemporary debates. The project Lo Animal en España, 1920-1964, the animal, although in Spanish, Lo Animal both refers to animality and animal. In English, there's no such a linguistic play. Let's stay with the animal in Spain, 1920-1964, which I had the honor of curating. Developed in quite a singular institution that you can see right there behind the trees, called Fundación Antonio Icinia, in Cerezales del Condado, in León, one of the regions in Spain which still concentrates a high percentage of rural territory. As many of the foundation's neighbors devoted to livestock production, this institution has a total of 4 animals listed as staff. It's probably the only cultural institution that does so. And you can see them here. There's a donkey called Quintin, an ox called Rogante, and a cow called Bonita. Within the so-called animal turn in art and culture, a mostly metropolitan/scholarly phenomenon, how can we integrate into the conversation those in rural areas who still live with animals and who hold a specific knowledge and know-how on the relation that humans and animals have traditionally established? Over the past 3 years, I attempted at a small history of the animal in rural Spain, having in mind that until the 1960s, the country remained underdeveloped and most of its territory responded to what we might catalog as rural. The research focused on 2 scientific fields, Darwinian natural history and Freudian psychoanalysis. It examined how these 2 fields intersected during the second third of the 20th century, a pivotal moment when modernity was being globally established and social progress coexisted with the rise of fascism. Understanding this period is crucial to grasping the origins of many contemporary ideas surrounding these issues. This is my take. The project situates the exploration within a cultural and geographical context shaped by the Second Republic in Spain, a progressive government, and Franco Spain, a fascist regime. I'm going to try to summarize, rehearse the history that was in the exhibition space with you. The first industrial revolution, the greatest process of social, economic, and technological transformation since the Neolithic era between 1820 and 1840, marked a radical shift in humanity's relationship with the environment, one that could forever change the connection between humans and animals. This process occurred alongside the gradual disappearance of animals from human life and, of course, their domestication, as a result of factors such as the migration from rural areas to cities, the replacement of animal power by other forms of energy, or the intensification of agriculture. At the same time, in parallel, developed the perception that human populations were growing faster than available resources, driving competition between species for survival. In this climate, Charles Darwin wrote on the origin of species by means of natural selection or the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. That was in 1859. During the research, we found this photograph in the veterinary school of León, the capital of the region where the foundation is located. This photograph from the anatomical cabinet of the subordinate veterinary school of León, which was taken just 1 year before the publication in English. It wasn't translated until 1877, but this photo is taken just 1 year before the publication in English on the origin of species, captures a world where the continuity between the human and the animal is still foreign. And if you look at the center of the picture, there's this concierge, which he's not conscious about the revolution that it's about to happen, right? Like just a few years after, he will be completely related to everything, to all the beings that are surrounding him. Darwin's work establishes a new frame of reference concerning the environment. It marks a shift in perception about animals and the biological links between species. Humans are no longer independent from the animal world, and from this moment on, they will be genealogically tied to it. Darwin imprints the racial supremacy of certain species over others in his vision of natural history, a mixture of cooperation and competition in the struggle of survival. This fact would have a decisive influence on the debates of the era, fully transforming dominant structures such as governance, religion, and religion's creationist vision. The new connections introduce the shift in problems and a condition of still abstract limits, the animal condition, lo animal. At the beginning of the 20th century, José Ortega y Gasset took the lead in bringing key developments from German thought to Spain. In 1922, a collaborative effort between Ortega y Gasset, José Ruiz Castillo's president of the publishing house Biblioteca Nueva, and translator Luis López Ballesteros, resulted in the first complete Spanish translation of Sigmund Freud's work. Remarkably, and not known at all, this was also the first translation of Freud's writings into any language, which was not other than German. Also, we know that Freud wrote directly to the translator, Luis López Ballesteros, commending him for the choice of a few words which he thought were the ones that were best translated from German in any other language. If Darwin made a kinship between animals and humans, Freud dictated that we were, in essence, animals, acting due to biological impulses. The introduction of psychoanalysis was not seamless in a country where the Catholic Church still held significant power. There were yet fissures through which new understandings of the animal permeated Spanish Catholic intellectual history. Jesuits like Father José Antonio de Lauburu, a biologist and popularizer of scientific psychology, critically examined Freud's interpretation of dreams. Documents preserved in the Loyola Historical Archive reveal his extensive study of Freudian psychoanalysis through Spanish and later French translations. Lauburu was engineering trying to align psychoanalysis with the doctrine of the Catholic Church with very weird experiments. You can see here hypnotized animals where, like this frog, which is on trance, and a few other kind of psychological experiments that he performed on animals. In the 1910s, the success of Belgian playwright Maurice Maeterlinck's writings on insects in Spain sparked a renewed interest in the work of French entomologist Jean-Henri Fabre. In 1920, the Espasa publishing house released 5 volumes in Spanish compiling Fabre's complete works. Fabre approached entomology as a practical and accessible field of knowledge, far removed from the isolation and complexity of the laboratory. His method emphasized the value of careful, focused observation to look at the minimum, at very, very, very small forms of life, available to anyone at the time. So he was not relying on optical instruments. A devout Catholic and a staunch anti-evolutionist, Fabre rejected the notion that animals possessed intelligence, instead attributing them an innate behavior, immutable instincts bestowed by a higher power at a moment of their creation. The volumes were a commercial success with multiple reprints and had a lasting influence on artists, writers, and Catholic groups who found in Fabre's work new arguments to reinforce their opposition to evolutionary theories. One of most, let's say, careful writers of Fabre's works was Luis Buñuel, filmmaker Luis Buñuel, who used insects throughout his filmography to highlight the instinctual drives underpinning his characters' desires and death impulses. As art historian Agustín Sánchez Vidal noted, the work of entomologist Jean-Henri Fabre, together with the psychoanalytic theories of Sigmund Freud, is key to understanding Buñuel's cinematic vision. According to Buñuel, quote, "Cinema's purpose is to revolutionize the bad habits of a society at odds with nature," end quote. His artistic awakening, he explained, began with Fabre's books. Quote, "I am passionate about the life of insects. In them, you find all of Shakespeare and all of Sade," end quote. In fact, the fascination of Buñuel for insects led him to abandon his studies in agronomy to pursue natural sciences before becoming later on a filmmaker. The relaxation of censorship following the proclamation of the Second Republic led to the flourishing of anarchist publishing, which intensified in the period leading up to and during the Civil War. One of the most notable publishers was Estudios, based in the Valencia region, which revolved around a magazine of the same name. Estudios positioned its publications as tools for popular education, making new scientific, sociological, and political ideas accessible to a working-class audience through engaging text and bold visuals, as you can see in here, which were often created by artists José Renau and Manuel Monleón. A central focus for the publisher was the promotion of a new lifestyle that, outside of capitalist structures, prioritized physical and especially sexual health. Many of the works drew on evolutionary and psychoanalytic theories, advocating for the acceptance of instincts rather than suppression, and of course, absolutely sexist covers where women are all the time compared to horses or birds, etc. In the late 19th century, alongside the rise of anarchism in Spain, alternative lifestyles to capitalism, socialism gained prominence, with naturism being one of the most significant. Rooted in anthropocentrism and supported by modern medicine and psychology, naturism opposed Catholic theocentrism, nationalism, and political authoritarianism, advocating for the human body as a central focus of contemporary communal life. While this form of vegetarianism did not explicitly align with animals' rights discourses, the early 20th century naturist movement began to touch upon the ethical and ideological implications of meat consumption and its impact on human-animal relationships. Here we can see a few of the magazines that were produced early on in Bilbao, Valencia, and also Madrid. Anarchism and other progressive ideologies not only transformed the relationship between the animal and the human, but more specifically, re-engineered the bond between the animal and the human child. During the Second Republic, the central role of educational policies and the state's adoption of German idealist principles led to the rethinking of children's relationship with animals and more broadly with their environment. The aim was to foster greater sensitivity to the treatment of animals, shifting education from the confines of classrooms to the outdoors in order to strengthen the bond between children and other species, vegetal and animal. This newfound sensitivity toward animals played a crucial role in anarchist education. Historians like Álvaro Girón have traced the significance of evolutionary theory within Spanish libertarian anarchist movements in the 19th century. And in here, we can see how even in children's books, we find articles on or translations or adaptations of Darwin's writings. The redefinition of the relationship between children and animals will also be key in the numerous cultural literacy campaigns launched to reach rural areas of the countryside from a centralist perspective. The most important of these institutional efforts, the so-called misiones pedagógicas. As depicted, misiones pedagógicas were actually touring, ambulant cultural campaigns meant to bring metropolitan culture into Spanish most isolated regions. As depicted in the film Estampas, initiatives like the pedagogical missions heavily employed modern audiovisual technologies such as gramophones, film projectors, and cameras in regions still largely reliant on animal-driven labor. The cinema service of the pedagogical missions became renowned for showing documentaries on wildlife and flora, partly because of its reliance on the Kodak Eastman educational film catalog. A notable evidence of this resource is Josep Renau's montage for the Pavilion of the Spanish Republic at the 1937 International Exhibition in Paris, where, drawing on several photographs, Renaud recreated a screening by the cinema service of the Misiones Pedagógicas where spectators watched a documentary, as you can see there, on Arctic wildlife. The film selection was deliberate. The luminous, ethereal images of animals captivated a rural audience accustomed to daily interaction with chickens, dogs, pigs, and donkeys, as the missionaries observed. Quote, many children tried to verify whether the animals, some familiars, other beyond imagination, appearing on the screen were real, timidly approaching to touch the screen several times, end quote. Familiar species, according to the missionaries, aroused greater interest. For the first-time viewers, quote, familiar sights captivate them more than the exotic. A bustling city might dazzle, but the appearance of a cat in a window brings them joy, end quote. In fact, the missionaries noted that children's fascination with animals, the children's fascination with animated films like Felix the Cat or Les Graniowski de Mandat en Roi. I'm on time, or? Despite social changes, the economic policies of the Second Republic remain rooted in animal extractivism and profit, with efforts focused on the mass production and distribution of animal-based products. Due to the high nutritional value of eggs and their ease of production, the Republic prioritized them as a solution to alleviate the food insecurity faced by much of the impoverished population. During the Civil War, poultry production became rhetorically militarized, with chickens and their reproductive capacity framed as key to the Republic's tactical and ideological success. In here, if you know Spanish, it says, to intensify apiculture is to help revolution, to intensify reproduction is to make revolutionary work, and this one is against thieves. in response to the challenges of supplying both the local population and citizens arriving in Catalonia from occupied areas, in 1936, the Department of Agriculture of the Generalitat and Poultry Farmers Union launched l'Oficina de l'Ou, the Egg Office, to implement a national production plan. This initiative, known as Batalla de l'Ou, Batalla de l'Ou, that you can see in there, sought to counter the centralization promoted by modern intensive livestock farming by encouraging every household to raise chickens, making extensive use of yards, balconies, and rooftops in urban areas. Under the slogan, in 1937, 1,000 chickens in every rural home and 6 chickens in every working class home, the local government launched the campaign to train citizens and distribute hens, aiming to turn each person into a producer. And just always miscalculating the time, so I'm just going to go very fast through 2 different examples from the fascist time. The dismantling of scientific institutions of the Spanish Republic by the Francoist regime led to the disappearance of the entomology section of the Museo Nacional de Ciencias Naturales, National Museum of Natural Sciences. Instead, something else was created, which was called the Spanish Institute of Entomology, headed by a biologist, which shifted the interest from the behaviors of insects that we have seen in people like Buñuel's Spanging from Fabre, to the idea of plaque, which he actually defined as annoying multitude. By the 40s and the 50s, the fight against plaques had adopted warlike and identity-based rhetoric, metaphorically linking biological control strategies with the identification of insects as political agents. A notable campaign of this institution is the campaign against the Colorado potato beetle, a species native to the Americas. And in this image, you can see a film produced by the Francoist Department of Agriculture to have farmers helping control this plague. And this is a beetle. So as you can see, the beetle is totally militarized. We are in 1945, so it's impossible to dissociate this from images from war. Even more, if you look at these maps of how it extends, it's very difficult to, it's like not Normandy, not the disembark of Normandy, but mostly, it's like they are gonna start from France and then they are gonna go into Spain and all Spain is gonna become a giant potato beetle. What's very interesting about this identification of the beetle with America, with North America, is that it kind of moved from different administrations. To fight the curve of the spread in European soil was taken up by ideologically opposed regimes, including the Francoist administration, we have seen, the Third Reich, and the Communist bloc. And I love this image where you can see the sleeve, which is an American sort of like death, spreading into the crops, these species. Yet we have to say that, and that's important, between the Republic and fascism, a few attitudes continued. And here we have an illustration by Luis Esteban Matamala, who also worked in this institute, and we see a continued fascination for the lives of insects, even if the political climate has completely changed. Lastly, I promise, because this is a really great example, while science underwent a significant reform, so did the countryside. In 1937, la sección femenina, or the women's section of la Falange Española de las Juntas de Ofensiva Nacional Sindicalista, which namely is the Spanish Fascist Party, established what they called Hermandad de la Ciudad y el Campo, the Brotherhood of City and Countryside Service, a service to organize the deployment of female volunteers from urban centers to rural areas controlled by the rebels. This woman replaced predominantly male rural workforce, now serving at the front lines in agricultural and livestock production. After the war, with the goal of elevar el nivel de la vida en el campo, as you can see here, queremos elevar el nivel de la vida en el campo. We want to improve the standard of living in the countryside. The fascist party, La Falange, continued this initiative through agricultural and livestock training programs for rural women, integrating these efforts with their roles as mothers and guardians of the home. Yet, understanding the relationships promoted by fascism between rural women and domestic animals requires examining the intersection of rural training and women's education. To make the fascist gender divide compatible with agricultural and livestock labor, La Hermandad extended aspects of motherhood central to the Francoist fascist view of women to the care of animals, highlighting their shared otherness. And you can see here both taking care of the dog, but also the child. But what's most interesting is how this image, which made motherhood and livestock work in the countryside compatible, were this series of images taken throughout the 40s and the 50s. The vision was engineered through a sophisticated visual campaign which promoted the portraying of women holding or even cradling animals, where those appear to be interchangeable with human babies. For example, you can see here, the relationship they establish. It's kind of strange, right? And we have always the same point of view. This is a map, interesting, which says the labor that was, or the tasks that were taken by this specific institution in 1943, where you can see they have in the same category cradles for babies, like they were giving away cradles to increase birth rate, but also hens and chickens and rabbits. So interchangeably, you could get one or another. These images were widely circulated through national media, promoting an ideological narrative that harmonized agricultural work with domestic labor, suggesting not only their compatibility, but a shared foundation. Through a network of institutions, including farm schools, hunting reserves, and agricultural centers, the Brotherhood emphasized the instinctive maternal filial bond between individuals of different species. Yet this infantilization of animals did not shield them from death, as their primary purpose in Francoist society was to serve the needs of the Spanish people, that is, to feed them. And I'm gonna leave it here. Thank you.